Good morning, members of the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, staff, and to the public that may be viewing our meeting this morning. My name is Bruce McKenzie, Vice Chair of the Conservation Authority, and I'll be standing in as Chair this morning. Our Chair, Brenda Johnston, is unavailable today, and she sends her regrets. The Niagara Peninsula watershed is located on the traditional territory of Indigenous peoples dating back countless generations. We want to show our respect for their contributions and recognize the role of treaty making in what is now Ontario. The Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority grieves with the Indigenous people and communities across the country on the tragic loss of so many children to the residential school system. We acknowledge that with this difficult history comes a responsibility to honor those who were lost and to strive to better understand how we can support affected communities. The Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority stands committed to improving our relationships with Indigenous peoples and working with them to ensure an equitable and meaningful future for all. So move along, I'd like to have a motion to approve the agenda that is in front of us today. I would ask that moved by Member Clark, seconded by Member Foster.
Mr. McKenzie, yes. There's one adjustment. The foundation update isn't required later on in the meeting since Mr. Encina is going to be in doing a delegation today.
Thank you, Member Foster. And as we've done in previous meetings, if there's no show of hands for a person who is not in agreement with the motion, I will consider the motion approved. So I don't see any objectors, so that motion is approved. Thank you. Is there any declaration of conflict of interest amongst the members? Seeing none? Thank you. Approval of the minutes. Of the full authority meeting dated September 17th, 2021, moved by Member Beattie, second by Member Ingrail. Okay, that's approved. Minutes of the closed session meeting dated September 17th, 2021, moved by Member Rapley, second by Member Wright. I have one note on those meetings, shows that I was in attendance at that meeting. I was not, and I'd like that to be recorded, my absence. Other than that, approved. Thank you. Next item is item 4, correspondence. Letter to Honorable David Piccini, Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, from Andy Mitchell, who's Chair of Conservation Ontario, a letter regarding update on Conservation Ontario's client service and streamlining initiative and related bulletin entitled Conservation Authorities continue to demonstrate their commitment to improving client service and streamlining.
Excuse me a second, Mr. McKenzie. We didn't do a roll call.
Well, thank you, Member Halinga, and we will get back to that in just a second. So that correspondence is for receipt, and the moved by Member Kaywall, seconded by Member Cridlin. And that letter and package was in your agenda package. I see no objections, so that's carried. Mr. Beval, could I ask you to take a roll call of members present today, please?
Most certainly. I was taking note, but I will do a formal roll call at this juncture if you'd like. Member Beatty. I see him there. Member Brady.
I'm here.
Member Clark. Member Kuhn-Peterson. I'm sure she'll be joining us in a bit. Member Cridland.
Present.
Member Fior.
Good morning.
Member Foster.
I'm present. I will be dropping off at approximately 11:15 this morning.
Member Halinga.
Present.
Member Hewson. Member Ingrail. I see him there. Of course, Chair Johnson is absent. Member Kaywall.
Present.
Member Rapley.
Present.
Member Smith. Appears so. And I had regrets from Member Steele, but Member Steele, you're not there. Obviously not, if he's not answering. Member Shurton. And Member Metcalf, are you there?
Am present.
Member Woodhouse.
Present.
And Member Wright.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. We'll move on to agenda item 5, presentations. Our first presentation is by our CAO, Chandra Sharma, and Natalie Guerine, project manager, for their presentation on the strategic plan. Chandra, would you like to begin with this presentation?
Through you, Chair Mackenzie, can I please ask the chair of our Strategic Planning Committee, Member Ken Kewal, to open up this presentation?
Thank you very much. Member Kaywall. You're muted, Ken.
Thank you, Chair Mackenzie and CAO Sharma. The opportunity to create a new strategic direction for an organization is not a common event, and I'd like to thank the board for your support in creating the Strategic Planning Committee to oversee the development of this critical planning process and the delivery of the strategic plan for the Npca. The new strategic plan will help align future organizational priorities with constantly changing environment in the Niagara watershed, as well as with the strategic goals of our partners and stakeholders. The key deliverable is the strategic plan. However, I want to recognize the significance of the process we've just gone through. First, the strategic planning process served to engage and rebuild credibility with our communities. Second, it was an opportunity for our CAO to share her vision and build a strong management team in support of that future. And third, it was an opportunity to empower and hear from our staff as to what they believe the future of the organization should embody. The Strategic Planning Committee is pleased to present the near final version of the strategic plan for your approval today. With today's presentation, the work of the Strategic Planning Committee has concluded and the committee is now disbanded. I'd like to thank the committee members whose experience and contributions helped shape what's in front of you today. Stu Beatty, Rick Brady, Jack Halinga, Committee Vice Chair Diana Hewson, Bill Rapley, Ed Smith, Mal Woodhouse, Brian Wright, and Donna Cridland, who I believe attended all of our Strategic Planning Committee meetings. In addition, we also had the contribution of our Chair Brenda Johnson and Vice Chair Bruce McKenzie. I also want to acknowledge the tremendous effort of the Strategic Planning team for their enthusiasm, their planning, and their professionalism in driving the process. And finally, I'd like to thank everyone that contributed. This is something that will hold the Npca in good stead for the future and something that I think we can be all very proud of. And with that, Vice Chair Mackenzie, I'd like to turn it back to CAO Sharma to take us through the new strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Ken Cawell of the Strategic Planning Committee, and through you, Chair Mackenzie, today. I'm really, on behalf of Npca staff, I'm honored and pleased that we were able to lead this process in good, and deliver on time and on budget. I'm pleased to present our 10-year strategic plan for your approval as report number FA 5921. The board entrusted us to deliver on this critical priority for this term, and we set the bar really high for the future of our organization. I'm particularly proud of the high standard of performance measures, reporting, innovation, and business excellence that is starting to become the new normal in driving us forward as an exemplary organization with exceptional people, and that is our staff. For the first time, the development of our new strategic plan was led by a cross-organizational team of staff with guidance from a strategic planning committee of the board, public advisory committee, and extensive input from the community and our partners, Indigenous groups, and several other stakeholders. We are grateful for all that input, feedback, and support that we have received. I will take a moment to recognize the staff working group that was instrumental in leading this work. I'm going to name staff, and I'll ask staff to please turn your camera on and say hello to the board members. So let me start with my list here. Eric Augustino.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you. Rob Curett. Is Rob with us? That's fine. Sarah Mastrioni.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Stuart McPherson.
Hello, thank you.
Carrie Royer.
Good morning.
Carrie?
Oh. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, there might have been a delay on my unmute. Good morning.
Fine. Erica Navarro. Erica?
Erica is unwell today and was unable to attend the meeting.
No problem. Thank you, Rebecca. Rob Petrullo. Rob is the creative mind behind the layout and design of this document. I don't see Rob here, but that's fine. Rebecca Hull, who is our new manager for strategic business planning and communication. Rebecca.
Good morning.
Yeah. And finally, Renee Bisson, who was part of the process for the first half of the period and before she left for maternity leave. I thank her for her contributions. And finally, Natalie Green, our project manager, who is going to be taking you through this process. So Natalie, I'll hold, please hold, you'll get an opportunity to talk to the board member and the community. I also want to recognize staff across the organization for their work because everybody contributed to this process, our management team and our senior leadership team, all the directors and managers and senior managers and supervisors who were instrumental in contributing and getting their teams to contribute. So I really thank them and recognize them. I also want to take a moment to recognize our consultant, Strategy Corp, for their support of staff and leading us through very effective consultations. And their team is with us today. John Matheson, Kelly Baker, Aiden Grove White. John, can I please ask you to say a few words to our board?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Chandra. Through you, Mr. Chair, I would simply say a strategic plan really is two things. One is it's a snapshot of where your collective minds are at the time it's taken, and then it's a promise to act on that over time. And you know, the lovely thing about the process that you've just run is that it's been so inclusive that it's a very inclusive snapshot. And the lovely thing about the KPIs that you have is it's a means of making certain that you continue to use this, not by leaving it on the shelf to collect dust, but by having it inform your ongoing decision making and giving you tools to keep track of your progress. So we're, you know, I think it's a document that sort of reflects the current best practices in strategic planning and is hopefully something that'll be of great assistance to the board as you continue the governance of the organization.
Thank you, John. Much appreciated, your help and support. Kelly, you want to say hello to the board? There's
Hi,
Kelly.
everyone. Good morning, and I'll just reiterate what John said and thank those on the team that did work on the strategic plan. Certainly the board and staff input was invaluable, and I think we couldn't have done it without everyone's participation and input, and hopefully everyone sees you know, many of their comments reflected in the final draft that the team worked on.
Thank you, Kelly. Is Aiden with us? Can I introduce him to the board, John?
Aiden had a conflict this morning, so he wasn't able to
Okay, great. Thank you. With that, I will now turn over to Natalie. But before I do that, a personal note of thanks to the board and the members of our strategic planning committee who were instrumental in guiding us and providing the direction. And I'm really thankful for the freedom and direction and support we've received from the board and the committee to make this work. And again, the product that is in front of you sets a bar really high for all of us to strive to. Over to Natalie, who will now take you through some of the components of the strategic plan. And Natalie has impeccable, I must say, project management skills. It has been a pleasure working with her. I would like to replicate the process we have taken to develop the strategic plan to other projects at Npca. And I'm really looking forward to working with other staff on a similar process on other projects. Over to you, Natalie.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. Thank you so much through you, Mr. Chair. I just want to reiterate what everybody said. I think this was amazing, and I'm so grateful to be here today to be able to present to you and walk you through the Npca's draft strategic plan that will guide the next 10 years of conservation in the Niagara Peninsula watershed. I do want to take a moment just to let you know that there was a technical difficulty with the link, and that was included in the meeting package, and a new updated link will be sent to you after the meeting, if it hasn't already been done. And I presume everybody can see my screen, correct? Yes, okay. We gratefully acknowledge that the watershed is situated within the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Attawandarock, and the Anishinaabeg, including the Mississaugas of the Credit. Through this strategic plan, we reconfirm our commitment to shared stewardship of natural resources and deep appreciation of Indigenous culture and history in the watershed. As one of 36 conservation authorities in Ontario, the Npca continues to further the conservation, restoration, development, and management of natural resources in the Niagara Peninsula watersheds. Our mission is to create a common ground for conservation-inspired action and accountability to nature as we strive to achieve a vision of nature for all. The Npca strategic plan is a critical milestone in our organization's transformation, as was just noted by Chair Kewal and CAO Sharma. It reflects the importance of collaboration between people, communities, and organizations on a collective response to a changing landscape. The plan builds on the principles of conservation leadership, customer service, collaboration, and accountability to nature. It provides strategic direction for the Npca and is vital for charting the course of conservation for the next 10 years. The Niagara Peninsula watershed is a unique natural treasure of distinct cultural, geological, hydrological, and biological aspects not found elsewhere in North America. It is to be cherished and valued now and for future generations. Through 6 overarching strategic priorities, 21 specific goals, and measurable actions, the plan charts the course for future actions and collective outcomes. For the first time, our strategic plan has a strong focus on results and performance to make well-informed decisions for the future and measure our actions against set targets. With this major milestone completed, the next step is to begin implementing the strategic plan by developing an operational plan that sets out specific actions to enable the Npca to meet its goals in collaboration with our communities and our partners from 2021 to 2031. Progress on these outcomes will be monitored and shared publicly through the Npca's annual report. Through this strategic plan, we are committed to healthy and resilient watersheds that will help mitigate the effects of climate change, reduce the risk of flooding to people and properties, and provide critical habitats for wildlife. We're committed to helping build resilient communities through land use planning and leading the use of sustainable technologies. We're committed to creating equitable access to nature for the health and well-being of all people. We're committed to strengthening our relationships with stakeholders, partners, the watershed community, and Indigenous peoples. We're committed to delivering on exemplary outcomes and high customer service standards while remaining accountable to the environment. We're committed to ensuring a financially stable and sustainable organization through innovative business practices. And finally, we're committed to nature for all. We look forward to working with our communities, partners, and other stakeholders to accomplish the priorities and goals ahead. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I look forward to seeing this come to fruition.
Thank you, Natalie. We can take any questions from the board now.
Sorry, I'm just going to chime in. It's Member Fior here. Through you, Chair. Is it okay to speak? I had my hand up, but maybe it was blurred out.
I think Member Mackenzie may be muted.
Thank you, Grant. Yes, Member Fior, please go ahead. I've lost a visual for many members, so if I don't see your hand, please speak up. Member Fior.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Vice Chair. And maybe to CAO Sharma or to Natalie. I'll start by thanking everyone for their hard work here. I'm really pleased to see how it's come together. Special thanks to CAO Sharma and Member Kewal for their leadership. Just a few questions that I would hope to get some insight on. So for goal number 1.2, the performance indicator, I'm wondering, and I realize that this is at the community level and we're looking at climate risk in the entire watershed, but I see that we have a timeline of 2023 there, which is excellent because it's just around the corner. And I'm wondering how we can leverage that strategy to draw awareness to our corporate climate change strategy, which unfortunately is earmarked for 5 years out. I realize that they are two different strategies, but how can we leverage one to show our commitment to the other so that the community doesn't see that we're waiting 5 years? I understand why we have to prioritize it 5 years out, because of course, I think the climate risk and vulnerability strategy is probably more pressing. So just that question of how can we leverage the one to show our commitment and potentially advance the other so that that 2026 timeline isn't so far out. So that's question number one. And maybe I'll pause. I have 3 questions. So should I pause after the first one and wait for a response there?
Yes, please. CEO Sharma, would you like to answer Member Fior?
Yes, absolutely. And through you, Chair, Member Fior, that's an excellent question. Let me first thank you for being so consistent with the climate change objectives and guiding us through that. I want to assure the members and the public that the climate change actions at Npca are not waiting for the strategic plan to be completed. We've already started. We've already started, and the corporate actions, we are reducing our paper. We have changed printer settings. Like I can name 100 actions, that we are starting to undertake. Now, through the community target or risk and vulnerability strategy that is listed to be completed by 2023, please note that that is happening on our conservation land as well, properties we own. So you will see a lot of action. We are going to leverage that to ramp up the actions that we are already taking. And it's the final document that you might see, but it will also list what we have done between now and to that point when that document is completed. But I should also tell you there are several actions in the strategic plan that will take on now and not wait for the strategy to be completed. So that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you. Member Fiore, you had another question?
Thank you. Yes, and through you, Chair. And I appreciate you explaining that, because I know if we looked at it in isolation, it looks like we're sitting on our hands, but we clearly are not. And I think it's really important to kind of draw attention to all the different ways that we're tackling climate change. And so on to number 2, when we look at goal 3.1 performance indicator, we're looking at increasing public green space. So I'm just wondering if we can add a numerical value there to indicate how much at a minimum we would be increasing that green space by. And further, I'm wondering how is equitable access reflected in this indicator? Because when I read the indicator, I know this goal relates to equitable access, but I don't see that the indicator is measuring that, if you will, or the metrics are measuring that either. So just wondering, is there room for improvement on that performance indicator to better represent the goal?
CAO Sharma.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Mackenzie. Let me just address your first question, which was, sorry, I'm just drawing a blank here.
The quantity.
Quantity, yes. So as you know, Npca in tandem with the strategic plan is also completing a land acquisition strategy. And one of the component or implementation component in the land acquisition strategy will be that goal of how much do we want to achieve and what it looks like from a monetary perspective and over the course of years, because you're limited on what you acquire financially and otherwise. So that land acquisition strategy is coming to the board in December, and that land acquisition strategy will have that data. We can certainly go back and look at these measures and see if there is any room for improvement. But there's a lot of GIS work that is done in the background to identify land holdings and come up with the target. So that work has begun as part of the land acquisition strategy. So we don't want to come up with an imaginary goal and not achieve that. We want to do the science and the data behind everything we measure and achieve and strive for. The second question was in regards to equity, how we achieve that across our parks. And I will ask Natalie, because she's been very closely working with the staff team to look at actions and measures and how we will do that. Natalie, you want to take that one on?
Yes, absolutely. So through you, Chair, to Member Fiore, what we're looking at right now is trying to find ways to connect. And the reason the performance indicator is linked to urban and near urban areas is through our SWOT, we noticed that equitable access was kind of a weakness in terms of not having locations for green space within a bus route or, without a car being able to get to those. So we felt that this performance indicator did meet our goal of trying to broaden access for different socioeconomic groups and reducing those barriers. So some of the actions that we're taking is I know that staff are working with municipalities to start connecting our trail network in the future to active transportation routes and ensuring public access and likely some GIS work. So there's a lot of actions that will feed into this, and they're all happening now. And also just through our conservation areas, looking at ways to remove those barriers so that we can provide more access. And those things will take time, but they're happening now as well, as CEO Sharma mentioned. We've started.
Thank
And
you.
I just want, sorry, Member Mackenzie, I just want to add to what Natalie said is the good news, and board members know already about this, is the CA Conservation Authority Act regulations have just come out. And the province has reconsidered making passive recreation for community as mandatory. So I thank everyone who worked on that. That was such an important thing to do. And I'm really pleased that that has happened. It will help us achieve that.
Thank you, CEO Sharma and Natalie, for that. Before I continue on, get back to Member Fior, are there other members that may have questions? I'm not seeing any. Okay, Member Woodhouse, Member Rapley, any others? Okay, Member Fior, did you say you had one more question?
Yes, thank you, Chair Mackenzie, and I'll make it brief. But to that last point, that thank you, CAO Sharma and Natalie for clarifying. I don't know if there can be any inclusion then in goal 3.1, just to mention that land acquisition strategy, even if it's that our performance indicator aligns with it, to kind of show that's where we're drawing our measurements from, just to kind of draw that connection. But my last question with respect to goal 4.3, again, on the performance indicator, and it would be two small questions here. When will staff be provided with Indigenous awareness training? And is this ongoing, or is it a one-time thing? Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Mackenzie. We have scheduled staff training for early 2022, and we have a list of several other actions that we have started working on with our staff. So, and we made that commitment public on September 30th as well through a statement to the public. We're seriously committed to that. As you know, we have met with various Indigenous groups, and this strategic plan benefited from those interactions because we were able to improve our actions and commitment in the strat plan through that input.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being able to ask those questions. Thanks again.
Member Mackenzie or Chair Mackenzie, it looks like you're muted again.
Oh, thank you, Member Fior, for your insight and review of the document. Member Woodhouse, you have a question? Member Woodhouse might be muted. He is muted.
How's that?
That's fine. Go ahead, Mal.
Okay, thank you. Being on the board and sitting on the committee, we were given updates as we went. The board was given updates as we went through this exercise. So I don't have any questions as to the specifics of what's being presented because we've been able to have those updates. My question is about going forward in terms of the advancement and public acknowledgement and circulation of this initiative. What is the plan in terms of the go forward and making this available to the public and other agencies? Thank you.
CAO Sharma, can you answer the Member Woodhouse's query?
Thank you, Member Woodhouse. Yes, we have developed, Natalie and Rebecca, as part of the team, a communication plan and a distribution plan, which has multiple steps And the plan is to circulate it to our municipal partners, formally launch it, and then use components or segments of that strategic plan to launch a social media activity as well. So I can assure you that it will be distributed and communicated far and wide. Right after board approval, we will do the final layout and the print, and then the PDF version that you saw, online version, and those all will be developed right after this.
Thank you. Member Rapp, member
excuse me,
Woodhouse.
follow-up, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
And I appreciate that. And I suspected that would be the case. You know, a lot of times with these strategic plans, and I've been involved in a number of them, is that once they're done, they become, you know, a living document for staff and board members to refer to, and you know, a guideline for staff to initiate, you know, the kind of actions we want to implement. Is there any kind of follow-up in terms of you said the social media? There's going to be an effort made to publicly make this available. Is there any form or part of that program in which we can measure the receptant, those receiving it, and ensuring that that's actually being communicated? Thank you.
I will defer that to staff, but I can tell you that we measure every communication activity in the background. We have channels to do that. So we'll have a pretty good idea of where we promoted and what the response was. I'm going to defer that to Rebecca. Rebecca, are you around us? Can you comment on that?
Yes, I can. So we're also planning to develop an implementation plan that allows us to track our KPIs and measure each year. Sorry, and then we can be able to report back in our annual reports on the progress that's made based on the strategic plan goals and outcomes. That's one way. Another way is we still hope to use the Get Involved portal. So that's where we will actually close out this project about the development of the strategic plan. But then there will also be other subsequent postings that we'll do on that portal as well to allow the public and board members such as yourself to be updated regularly on the work that the staff is doing. So yes, it's a living document, and we hope to have regular touch points to celebrate our progress.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's my question.
Oh, sorry I interrupted you, Member Woodhouse, but I think you...
No, I just said thank you. That's my question. I appreciate the answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. And Rebecca, thank you and welcome to the Npca. I don't think I haven't met you before, and I'm looking forward to meeting you again, maybe sometime in person as well.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Good. Member Rapley.
Through you, Bruce, it's really encouraging and pleasing to see this final report. I just wanted to say that I've been involved in many strategic plans, international, national, provincial, and Toronto Zoo, et cetera, for many years. And this is really a super job. And I just want to congratulate Chandra and the Strategic Planning Committee, Ken, and everybody that has been involved, and the staff. We have a really good product here. I'm really pleased to see the leadership strengthened in the green end of it, because time is marching on, and we need to work on climate change and set the green example ourselves, and that's great. And the other thing is, I think it's really important, the liaison between for board members like myself with the Niagara on the Lake and Npca. A lot of steps have happened to improve communication, but I think a presentation of this strategic plan to the various consuls and have a show and tell day to follow would be great. And I'm sure that Chandra's probably planning on doing that. This will be very helpful. So I don't really have a question. I just wanted to compliment and to say that I'm so pleased and I'm so happy to see the staff so engaged in it. And I'm very happy that all the players had their input and it's a superb report. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Rapley. Before I move on, I just wanted to see if there's any other members that may have questions or words. Right now, I'm not seeing any hands, one electronically or visually. Okay.
I don't see any. Yes.
Thank you, Chandra. I would ask for the board's indulgence now. I would like to move on to discussion item 8B. This is report number FA 5121. Read the Npca strategic plan 2021 to 2031. This report is in front of us today for approval. I'm suggesting we deal with this report now while we're fresh on the topic, and staff are available in case there's any questions. This is to be moved by Member Paywall, second by Member Beatty. Floor is open for any questions or discussion of this report. I'm seeing no objections, so I see that this report has been approved by the board of the Npca. And this is a monumental occasion for the Conservation Authority, and it's in this time of Zoom meetings and WebEx that I marvel at the abilities and the drive of the people who have been involved with this project to put it together, and as our CAO said, on time and on budget. But more importantly, this new strategic plan has laid out new tracks for us to travel on and to continue to foster the environment and our environmental responsibilities for the public and for the sake of our natural environment. The standard that has been set by staff and our strategic plan committee leads me to believe that there are many milestones yet to be reached and that we are capable of reaching them, because this has all been completed during, as I mentioned, in the time of Zoom and during the involvement of a new Conservation Authorities Act and regulation. And where some might have said, oh, we can't do it now, we have to wait for the waters to calm, this Conservation Authority has stepped ahead and moved forward. And on behalf of the board, and going to reach out on behalf of the public who have been so important to this process, thank you to everybody involved. Thank you very much. I'd like to move on now to item 5B, presentation by Jackie Obelisk, chair of our Public Advisory Committee. Jackie, are you with us?
Yes, I am, Chair. You can hear me okay?
Yes, I can. I'm just going to introduce the subject here. Jackie will be our chair of the Public Advisory Committee. Will be speaking briefly about her discussion paper, which is identification of key issues and opportunities within the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, dated October 5th. And this is for receipt and referral to staff. So Jackie, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. My apologies on my camera. It seems that it's a Friday and it's decided not to work. Who knows? These things do come and go and are always a challenge, but as long as you can hear me, I think that's the important thing. So thank you very much for having me, and thank you to Chair Johnson, Vice Chair Mackenzie, and CAO Sharma for the invitation to speak this morning. As mentioned, I am the chair of the Public Advisory Committee. I am also the environmental rep for the committee. And as you may know, the Public Advisory Committee has 12 voting members and 2 non-voting members, the board chair and vice chair. And the membership really has broad representation. It's the different sectors are listed in the paper, discussion paper, which is in your package. It's on page 12 in case you are looking to refer to it, page 12 of your package. Okay, so there are a number of representatives on this committee. And we did sit down in February, which seems like a long time ago, but really, I guess, was not, to have a discussion on key issues. We felt it was important really to start to bring together some of the things that we were hearing from the different sectors, from the public, regarding issues, perceptions on what Npca is doing, what Npca should be doing. Again, we may be dealing with perceptions, but I think that that's just as important in bringing forward the voice of the public really to you. So that's really what this paper is about, is that what we did was that we sat down, we had a discussion, we framed it basically around some key questions, and I can read you the questions. From the perspective of your interests in environmental conservation and sustainable land use in Niagara, what 2 issues do you feel are the most important? How do these issues relate to Npca, and how would you like to see the organization address them? And then we provided opportunities to identify other issues and to provide further comment. We had 12 members, including the board chair and vice chair, participate in the discussion, and 6 written submissions were received following the meeting. So we had lots of good input into this, and this is really just a summary of comments and observations from the PAC members. And there is further information available if you are interested. It should also be noted that 4 of our members were attending the very first meeting when this discussion took place. So that might have been a bit of a challenge for them, but certainly they provided some very good input into this as well. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. There are a few pages that discuss the issues by sector and do lists the key issues. And those are summarized on your page 18 of your package, page 7 of the report. So we do have those pulled together, and I just want to touch on a couple of things that I found were quite interesting. A lot of these issues you're going to be familiar with. But a couple of things that I think are worth noting was that our Métis representative identified concerns regarding drainage and handling of nutrients as being their top concerns. In relation, the drainage issue in relation to things like culverts going over waterways and ensuring that we weren't losing natural values as I guess it's the provincial changes are being made regarding the amount of culvert, the size of culvert coverage on waterways. And he also really was concerned about nutrient handling in relation to agriculture and also in relation to movement of these nutrients and ensuring that our waterways weren't going to be contaminated over time. If we were to take a look at the urban and rural planning concerns, then there was an interesting concern that was brought up that a lot of the time when planning when planning documents and development ideas were moving forward to a municipality and the discussions were taking place, that things like LID, low impact development ideas were not acceptable to these municipalities, that they really didn't understand where these were coming from. And so I think that it's really important to understand that that this is happening, and perhaps Npca has an opportunity to move forward and provide some education around this. And I believe that that has started already. Just going down to property owners' representative comments was that there are some concerns regarding being downstream of development. We know that there's a lot of development occurring in Niagara, and that I guess there are concerns through the public and through the property owners that there may be some flooding downstream of some of these developments as land use changes. There was also a concern raised, and I know that this was just discussed, but I will raise this regarding availability to conservation areas and facilities. And I was very pleased to hear that that was included in the strategic plan. So really, this discussion occurred, and I believe Natalie was there, though I'm not sure, but you know, she certainly was aware of it. And I'm very happy to see that some of the points that were raised during this discussion have been included in the strategic plan that you just discussed. But that certainly was a large issue, and taking a look at the environmental end of things, natural systems preservation was definitely something that has been raised across a lot of discussions from a lot of different areas. And remediation of CA properties was something that was raised, and that people are seeing that some of the properties have just been well loved and well used, especially in the last couple of years. And there is a need to ensure that the natural values are being protected within these areas. So that's just kind of a sampling of some of the issues that were put forward during this discussion. There were some sector-specific issues that were identified. Slow Npca permitting process is something else that I'm sure you've heard about before, and that's something that was raised by our Agriculture North representative. There was an issue or identification of an issue around environmental impact statements, EIS, which is also something I'm sure that you've heard about more than once. That there are concerns that they're not always science-based when it comes to analysis and recommendations. And again, even if this is perception, I think it's important that you are aware of that, because this is something that can be a barrier for the public to be accepting of what the decisions are over time when planning decisions do come down. If people feel that the EIS has been skewed, which came to me time after time after time, then I think that that's something that does need to be addressed one way or the other. Taking a look at similarities, there are a lot of similarities across all the different sectors and in comments and questions. How do we maintain and protect and enhance our natural features of the watershed while encouraging efficiencies and how issues and conflicting goals are addressed? I think that's a very important question that hopefully over time can be addressed. And how do we deal with projected growth in a way that does include retention of the important natural functions, such as wetlands and open spaces for water control, as well as urban and rural forests retention for cooling and air quality? You can hear that there's some climate issues that are coming through, even though we haven't had a direct discussion regarding adaptation and mitigation with climate change. I think that you can see that, you know, when we're taking a look at retention, protection of natural areas and how do we develop using low impact processes and ideas, that really does spill over into the climate end of things as well. So, you know, they are not exclusive of each other by any means. Certainly there's similarities and discussion of drainage issues. Another drainage issue, by the way, was concerns from our Ag South representatives that some of the small ditches were being considered to be waterways, and so there were restrictions around them. So here's another discussion that needs to occur. If that's necessary, why is it necessary? And perhaps in some cases it's not necessary, and so it needs to be addressed.
Jack?
Yes.
Just as a function of time, I'm going to ask if you could to wrap it up for the
Absolutely.
For the members.
Chair, thank you. Okay, and so there are a number of issues that I would urge you to take a look at the report, and certainly, as I say, we can address them further. I will, as a closing, just suggest that the PAC is comprised of individuals with valuable expertise and experience in their sectors. And I would encourage you to consult with the PAC on a regular basis so that there are opportunities for you to hear about issue identification and opportunity identification as well. I think that the PAC definitely can play a role in that. Thank you very much, Chair, and I will try and address any questions.
Jackie, thank you very much. Your leadership of the PAC and the work of the PAC is much appreciated by the board and by the community. I had some wonderful news last night attending a Conservation Ontario meeting when new regulations as set out by the province through the Conservation Authorities Act were being announced. And one of them was that public advisory committees may still exist. I don't know why they were ever threatened in the first place, but the good news is that conservation authorities across Ontario, should they choose to have or make use of public advisory boards and the knowledge that they can bring to the authorities, are still welcome. And knowing how our PAC members feel and the amount of time and energy they put into the work with you and the staff and Chair Johnson, this was welcome news. And I look forward, and I can speak confidently on behalf of the chair and the other board members, we look forward to developing and working with, developing an important relationship with the Public Advisory Committee and continue to work with you. And I thank you for putting together that comprehensive report for our review. Members, are there any questions of Jackie Obelisk? Okay, seeing none, I do ask for a motion moved by Member Clark, second by Member Cridlin, for the receipt of the presentation and report by Jackie Obelisk, Chair of the Public Advisory Committee, and it's for the receipt and referral to staff. Any discussion or objections? Seeing none, approved. Thank you, Jackie. And just for your knowledge, at the end towards the end of this meeting, we have the minutes of your committee's work. So you're more than welcome to stay around for those those items should you wish. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Item 5C, PowerPoint presentation by Brian Lee, our GIS administrator. The report is on Watershed Planner Open Data Hub, and this is for receipt. And Jeff Vercade, Jeff, I see you there. Welcome. And I think you're going to introduce Brian in this presentation. If not, provide the whole thing. Please go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Chair Johnson, and good morning, members. This presentation is in response to some positive feedback we actually received from a member. So we decided, we should share and provide you a little glimpse of what we have going on in terms of web mapping and our data sharing capabilities. I'm just framing this from the perspective that this is about our 4th or 5th generation of this actual web mapping viewer. It's been around since the mid 2000s in some shape or form, and the content has largely stayed the same. Always had our hazard inventories and our derivative screening mapping in there. So we've been very transparent and open with the public about that stuff. It's still in there today. It includes a disclaimer, to balance and manage risk with respect to liabilities from using the mapping. And we have more capabilities now that complement this, which Brian will share you about, which is the open data portal that Chair McKenzie mentioned. We actually brought a report on the soft launch of that to this board in January or February of 2020. So with that, I will let Brian take it away for you. Brian is our GIS administrator. He's been with us about 3 years, and he keeps the lights on for this whole system for us.
Thanks, Jeff. Through you, Chair McKenzie and the board, I'm just going to share my screen with you and go through a very quick presentation of some of our technology and how we distribute and consume our spatial and GIS data. So I'm just going to go and share my screen. Hopefully this works. And I'm going to switch over to my computer in the office. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to frame this very quickly. I'm going to give you a 30-year history lesson in about 30 seconds here. What you're looking at here is our traditional GIS desktop system. What we've done the last 25 years, and I'm an old guy, as you can see by the gray hairs I have. I've been doing this for about 30 years. So traditionally what we've done here is the GIS technician would use this very expensive desktop system. We would have the data layers sitting on a hard drive. We would bring those data layers into this software, and then we would produce a hard copy map. And then at that, then at that point, we would send this hard copy map out to a very expensive printer, and we would put it on a table, and everybody else would gather around the table. And by the time everybody got to the table, the data would be probably out of date and obsolete. So we would make changes to the map, have to go back to the drawing board here and make the changes. And at that point, cut down another tree, print out the paper, and look at it again. very time consuming process and a very expensive process. So fast forward to the early 2000s, as Jeff had stated, and very rudimentary type of web delivery system of the ability to distribute and consume spatial information. So I'm just going to bring up a PowerPoint presentation, and there's only one slide, and I'll go through this very briefly. So fast forward to the last 2 or 3 years, and what we've done at the Npca is we've deployed the latest GIS industry software, and we've updated it. And what that software is, and you can see in the center here, we have a data repository. What that really consists of is just it's a server along with SQL Geo databases, which is basically it's a fancy database that we put all the layers in now. Those data layers, whether it's our screening layer or whether it's location of climate stations or whatever, are stored within this database on the server. Within the technology of the software that sits on the server, we make what are known as web-friendly data layers that can be viewed in web applications or web pages and applications that sit in browsers such as Chrome. So what I'm going to demonstrate to you today is how we view the data layers from this repository in a product that we put out to the public, which is called Watershed Explorer, and also give you a very quick glimpse as into our GIS open data portal. And along with these two bits I'm going to show you, also which gets fed into the data repository, and we have the ability to do this now, is we can collect data in the field through field data collection apps, which sit on our mobile phones and our tablets. And so we take that data from the tablets and it gets fed into this repository basically live now. So the days of walking out in the field with a clipboard and a pencil that you would drop in the middle of a field hopefully are coming to an end. So we are on the leading edge of this type of technology, and also our partners and stakeholders can view data through our open data portal and through any other web applications that we would make available to them, either through login or through a public browser as well. So that's it for that slide. So what I'm going to do is show you how we get to the open data portal, and we simply have a link through the Npca website. Under the services pull down menu, we have a mapping entry. We click on that, and that spins up our open data portal. So I'm going to discuss the open data portal a little bit in a few minutes, but first I want to go to the web browser for the Watershed Explorer. So within the portal, we have a number of sections, and one of those sections is tools and applications. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start the Watershed Explorer. Again, it opens up a new tab. The data starts to load, and this is the legalese that we agree to when we click OK. I'm just going to zoom out to full extent. And so what really has replaced the ability to distribute and consume what we traditionally did on the desktop is now all basically contained in a web page. This is the public version. We also have an internal version, version that staff use. It's very similar to this. It has a few more data layers into it and a few more functionality, but I'm going to just demonstrate the public version here. So within the layer list, we have all the layers that are present within this mapping system. And as you can see, we can expand out and look at kind of the symbology of all the layers. And what you're seeing in here is the watershed extent and the municipality boundaries as well. So we can turn on any one of these layers here. This particular one are the stream gauges and the climate stations. And that data layer itself is coming from that GIS repository that was the kind of centerpiece of my PowerPoint presentation. So that is a web-friendly version of the data layer that we used to traditionally use on our desktop software. now we can view that data and consume it through a web app such as this. With any type of GIS layer or spatial data layer, there's also attributes attached to it. We can click on the object and we can populate any attributes relative to that particular data layer. One of the neat things about using a web-based system such as this is that we can link to other websites and other data that are tied into the objects that we want to display. In this instance, this is a water level station, and we can link to a graph of the current water levels at that station for the last 3 days. So this automatically spawns out the graph, and this is all managed by, this particular graph in the data behind is all managed by our water department, which is really cool. And then we can go into a cumulative precipitation chart here that gets into the kind of the raw numbers that are going into the graph. We also have, a number of layers, and we can zoom in, and layers will turn on as we zoom in. We also have layer, surface water intake protection zones. So these are the intakes for our drinking water. And as you can see, it's another layer that comes on. We can click on this and the attributes come up to it. And the reason why I'm showing you this layer is I'm going to, at the end of my little chat here, is going to kind of come back full circle to that desktop software. So just to demonstrate some of the functionality within this viewer, we have our legend, and the legend is interactive as to what's basically turned on at the moment that you put the legend on. Fairly simple. We can change the background mapping as well, so we can get kind of different views of the base data as well. And that's all coming in through kind of a data layer that's served out by ESRI Canada, so that can be changed. And even that base data layer, 10 years ago, we would have to build it from scratch. Now this is all kind of tiled imagery that comes in behind it, so it makes the distribution of the the mapping very much easier. We have some very simple measurement tools as well. Very simple to use. You don't have to be an expert in order to basically get them going. You can select your unit of measure, and you can just simply click along, and it puts the graphic on the map, calculates the distance. Fairly simple. We also have some drawing tools as well. So you can zoom in onto a particular point on the map. You can pick your color and your width and so forth, and then you can just basically stream out a line on the map. And of course, we have a printing function as well down here, and you can print all this stuff out to a PDF file, and that's stored, and that'll go, for the end user, that will go onto their computer, or you can just kind of view it and delete it at that point. Another neat thing that happens here when we draw a line, we get a line in our layer list here, and then we can actually click on it. And from that point, we can actually put a buffer around that line of our choosing. So at that point, let's say I wanted to see along that line, let's say 500 meters either side of that line, and you'll see kind of that blue tinted polygon appear around the line. So it gives you an indication of relative spatial relationships based on that line that you just drew, which is kind of cool. And turn that off. And kind of the last function I'm going to show you, which is really neat, is, I'm going to expand this out, is we have a function in here called add data. So within our central repository, as an organization, we have those layers in there, and we make them web enabled. So we serve those out to the public. They're all publicly accessible, and I'll show you that when I get into the open data portal. Other organizations are also using the exact same kind of methodology, architecture, and software that we use. So we can actually search the web for those layers and put them on our map as well. So I'm going to turn off the intake layer, and I'm going to search for instance. I'm going to go out to the land information materials site, and I'm going to look for the areas of natural and scientific interests, for instance. So I hit the return on that, and lo and behold, here is the areas of natural and scientific interests. we get a list of these from different organizations, but I like the Land Information Ontario one. We can click on the details, and this brings up a separate page about the layer. So it's the metadata page. So this is the information about that particular layer. And then what Land Information Ontario has done is also attached in here more documentation about that specific layer. So I'm going to return to the map and actually simply add that on. And so at that point, it comes into our layer list automatically. We turn those on, and then you can see the green polygons. So these are all the areas of natural and scientific interest. And one thing to note about this is a live layer. So if these polygons were to change or additional areas of interest were to be added, it's automatically updated throughout the web. So the next time we come in and call up this layer, it's automatically going to get updated. So that's a real advance from the old days where we would have a single file known as a shapefile or a data layer, and we would have to pass that on to different organizations and constantly get new versions of it, email it, put it on a disk and physically mail it to them. They'd unpack it and put it into their desktop systems. That was very time consuming, both from a time and an expense for staff to pass data back and forth. Now we can basically just go out and grab that layer over the net and put it in our mapping system. So very efficient that way. And again, these have attributes attached to them, and we can view those in the pop-up menu here, or we can actually open up the data table, and we will see all of the attributes for all of the objects in that particular layer. So to simply turn that layer off in our mapping software, we can simply throw it out, and it's taken off the map instantly. Another neat feature of the add data layer is we can actually go out and we can look at other live layers that are being produced and being broadcasted out to the public. And one of those is actually live traffic. So we can actually add live traffic into our map. So this is updated every 5 minutes, and we get a nice overlay of the spatial relationship of what the traffic's doing in the region. And if we zoom out up to the GTA, it's looking the usual red, turning purple congestion. Never fails. And so at that point, it's going to move back and we take that off. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move over to our Open Data Portal software. And I'm going to go back to this and just talk a few seconds about this. So all of the data that sits in our repository, which was the center bit of that slide, we, at the click of a button, can publish that data out. That's going to be housed out to this website for public consumption. So if they were looking for any one of our layers that we publish out to the public, they can find it here. We've made some categories. Monitoring, reporting is one of them, and you can see these are the layers under that particular classification in here. And you can also search for them as well. We have a search tool. If I go back to here, if I type in, let's say, surface, you're going to see it's the surface water intake layer. So this was the layer that I produced out or turned on in our web mapping software. So what the Open Data Portal is for people to come in and basically download the data, or to grab the data and actually put it into their own web mapping software. And this data is essentially live. So if any one of these boundaries in this particular data layer is to change, if it's put into their software and they basically refresh their browser, they will see the new changes that we made automatically. No longer are we passing files back and forth. So for the general public and our stakeholders and the folks that we work with at the Npca, for them to basically request data, this is the first stop in their journey to basically get that data. And the vast majority of the layers that we produce are put out onto this Open Data Portal. And at that point, that really saves us time for taking those data requests that I used to have to do. And I would probably have 4 or 5 a week, and it would take about an hour to basically, get that data layer and send it out to them. And so that, those 4 or 5 hours, that's basically a day out of my week. So when we introduced the Open Data Portal here, it's really reduced the number of requests that have come in for data. Now, we do still get some, we customize that and we send it to them, but it's really reduced the amount of time that's taken us to get our data out and make it transparent to the public. So within this data layer, we can look at kind of the metadata that we've made about our protection zones, and then they can download it directly from the page in whatever format that they want to consume it in. And also, if they want to embed this particular layer in their version of their web map, if they're using the same ISRI system that we are, and the vast majority of municipalities that are now using the exact same system that we're using, they can simply take this layer and basically they can grab the URL and embed it directly into their web mapping if they wish. And we can also kind of come full circle with this, and we can take this layer, for instance, and we can grab the URL for it. I can come back to my desktop software and just add that data layer into here. And there are our intakes. Now this is the web version layer. Again, it is live. If a municipality, when they use their GIS desktop software, if they want to take any one of our public layers from our open data portal and embed it into their mapping, which would be their common operating picture for the GIS technicians, or into their version of their web map, they can embed it automatically. And this is, again, live data. We're not passing files physically back and forth. The versioning issues are all taken care of, and very simple to embed that so that they can distribute it amongst themselves and consume it. So,
Brian. Hello, Brian.
Yes.
Bruce McKenzie speaking. Yes. I was just wondering if you, in light of our timing, if you would be able to wrap your presentation up. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, just 10 seconds. So in closing, we've put this architecture and structure into place to ensure that our distribution and consumption internally is best suited for us, is best suited for the municipal partners within the watershed and for the general public. And that concludes it. So thanks.
Question?
Brian and Jeff, yes. Thank you very much for your presentation. Every time I see one of our presentations from staff, I and I know other members of the board are continually impressed with the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes to make this all work. So thank you again for bringing this to the board today. So we have this presentation on Watershed Planner Open Data Hub for receipt, moved by Member Fior, second by Member Halinga. Any objections to receiving this or questions? Malcolm and then Member K-Wall.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Two things. Number one, it's very impressive and congratulations. I can see how this is really going to make some significant changes in the way in which everybody works these days, which is great to be on the leading edge of this instead of trying to catch up to everything we need to do. And information is so powerful, and it looks like we're going to have a lot of it. My question is I have two questions. Number one, the readings from the remote stations in terms of water levels and those kind of conditions, are they mobilely, or does somebody have to go to that site to enter that information, or is that done automatically and fed wirelessly into the receptacle or whatever you call it, the centerpiece?
Right. Not the expert in that, but I believe it's done automatically. Some folks from the water department can verify that, but I believe the in situ sensors are feeding back into a database in which we grab, which produces the chart. So we don't physically have to go out into the field anymore, download the data from the data collectors and produce that. So it's all done on the fly.
Okay, thank you for that. The other question I have is in terms of, because I'm kind of this paranoid guy about having backup plans for everything. And say we have a catastrophic event in which we've got, major flooding and the systems go down. Is there a backup plan in which can be implemented to make sure that we're still collecting data out on the field that is critical for us to manage it?
Again, not the expert, but I believe we do have backup redundancy systems that are in place for that data to be collected. Again, someone from water could speak upon that, but to the best of my knowledge, that there would be the redundancy systems. I know just for my software and my technology, we do have backup systems, both internally and externally. So,
Chandra, can you or maybe one of the staff answer that question, please?
Chandra.
Yes, sorry. Thank you, Chair. I'll ask, Jeff can take that on. Yeah, he's leading the watershed portfolio.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair Mackenzie, our whole entire network has a backup and redundancy off-site situation. So if something happens at the office or at that place, everything can be replicated and set up and going. And that includes the water resources system and how they remotely access, as Brian just confirmed through your question, the sensors out in the field. Most of them are satellite-based or cell-based. So it's just a matter of pulling them to another location where our database infrastructure is, and like I said, it's replicated at 2 sites with a proper backup and redundancy thing. And the GIS is actually interesting because it has an additional layer as well. The whole environment that Brian shared with you, there's something called ArcGIS Online. So we have redundancies for all our applications and the public web mapping and what stuff in there. So even if our redundancies here failed, we have an online cloud-based environment where we have this stuff replicated as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for those answers.
Thank you for your interest, Member Woodhouse. Member K-Wall, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So thank you for the presentation. Great stuff. My question really comes down to, are other municipalities, in fact, is the region of Niagara actually using this? And the reason I'm asking that is there a very active discussion going on right now about the natural heritage environment and a mapping of options. And it would seem to me that if they could map those options on top of this GIS base, there's a lot of valuable information that could help support the various options. So that was my question. Are they using this for their work? And if not, have we reached out to them to actually offer this to them? So.
Yes, thanks, Member K-Wall. I know for a fact that yes, they are. They're using the exact same technology we are. They've just recently put it into place. Their systems are, and their server farms are larger than we are. But yes, they are using the exact same technology. They have web mapping systems that they both use internally and public web-facing mapping systems as well. I know a couple of other municipalities within the watershed that are using the exact same system. I know for a fact Fort Erie is using the exact same ISRI system that we are, have the enterprise system and the data repository in place. And I know that the folks at Fort Erie are actually consuming, our screening layer into their internal web mapping, along with some of the supporting web layers that go into the screening layer as well. Which makes their effort much easier. They don't even have to go to our system. They can just consume it within their own web mapping system, since our systems are basically identical. So there's no passing, there's no legged data. When we update our screening layer, they see it automatically once they refresh their browsers. So to answer your question, yes, the region is using it along with other municipalities.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Member K-Wall. Hope we can work with that. Member Rapley.
I just want to make a comment, and I have a question. This is phenomenal. I just think it is the most interesting and well thought out and well done thing that the Npca will be in great position. And this information is so valuable. It's incredible. Now, on the other hand, you control all the information that goes in there. Can people come in and manipulate anything?
Thanks for the question. Everything is password protected as far as on our side, and the information that's going into the data repository, everything is password protected. So it's myself that have the influence as to what goes in, along with Jeff as well. So between the two of us, we have the total control of the GIS repository. So it is in a what is called a DMZ zone in our server farm system. Totally secure. Everything is password protected, and we are the ones that only control the data that go into that to ensure not only the integrity of the data, the completeness and the accuracy of it as well.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Member Rapley. Before I call the question, are there any other members with questions of staff? Okay, thank you very much. I see no objections, so that's approved. Our next agenda item, 6A, delegation. I'd like to welcome the chair of the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, Tom Insina, for the annual report for 2020. Tom, are you with us? Well, good morning.
I am. Good morning to everyone. How are you doing today?
Good, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair McKenzie and the board members. Thanks for the opportunity to bring remarks on behalf and update on behalf of the foundation. Before I get started, I want to say congratulations on your strategic plan coming to fruition. That's a monumental achievement on your part, and through I believe Member Kwal, congratulations on heading that. And we're hoping that we can actually help you in implementation in a lot of those strategies. As you know, the foundation's mission is to raise funds for the Conservation Authority to increase green space, improve water quality, and assist in environmental research and education. We're proud of our accomplishments and refer you to our 2020 annual report, which I believe everybody has been sent. I'd like to spend a little time with you today highlighting our achievements over the last couple of years. We launched our first Directors Donation Challenge as part of the Great Canadian Giving Challenge. And in 2020, with the requested directors of the Foundation, the Authority, your Public Advisor Committee, and your CAO and staff, and your directors to contribute. To date, we have received around $15,000. I want to sincerely thank Chair Johnson for her leadership in providing her honorarium for this important initiative. And as a side note, it's never too late if you'd like to donate. We have, we have partnered with the Authority to ensure the construction of 7 memorial benches in various conservation areas. These lasting legacies have been purchased by those who wish to honor their loved ones. This year, the Foundation reintroduced its Educational Bursary Fund for students entering post-secondary learning in the environmental field. I am so happy to announce that 15 $1,000 bursaries were awarded to students throughout the watershed. And it's not just Niagara, it's throughout the watershed. It's anticipated next year. The number may not be 15 according to our funds, but we're hoping to reach that again. We're also pleased to continue the work with local artisan Marvin Enns, who created the exquisite pens from the comfort maple tree. Over the past 2 years, the Foundation has sold 35 pens and 2 custom bowls. Now is the perfect time for everyone to order unique comfort maple pens as the holiday season is around us, and they are fantastic pens and they look great. In 2021, we launched a successful speaker series featuring 3 renowned presenters, David Newland, Mark Zielinski, and Yvonne Van Lankveld. Last year, the Foundation was excited to partner with the Authority on your first holiday trail at Balls Falls Conservation Area. We hope to continue this partnership in the future by bringing donations to the Winter Wonderland event. Excuse me. And also in 2021, the Foundation developed and initiated the Gallery Capital Campaign at Balls Falls Center for Conservation. The campaign, which is chaired by Rob Foster, focuses on raising funds for a new and interactive educational display at the center. The phase 1 of the project has been fully funded at around $40,000 through Authority initiatives. With the diligent work of both Authority and Foundation staff, we have raised $41,250 of the $60,000 target for phase 2. To date, funds have been pledged from Enbridge Gas, Nevada, Calamus Wines, D&G Wood, and most recently the region of Niagara. I'm very pleased that $10,000 was raised this year from Chair Bradley's charity golf tournament. The Foundation sends its thanks to all donors and supporters for this worthwhile campaign. On a sad note, we lost a great Canadian in September 2020, the Right Honorable John Turner. Mr. Turner was a passionate supporter of the environment and the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Foundation. In the past, Mr. Turner often attended our gala, which was named in tribute to him. This well-attended event permitted the Foundation to raise funds for such needed environmental education. It is our sincere hope that once the pandemic is behind us, we can again offer this spectacular dinner event to raise funds for conservation education. On a bittersweet note, the Foundation said farewell to our executive coordinator, Andrea DiCenzo, in August of 2021. Although we were sad to see Andrea leave, we are delighted that she has accepted a position as fundraising and events manager at Women's Place in South Niagara. We thank Andrea for her dedication and service to the Foundation and wish her all the best in her endeavors. Andrea's departure has provided the Foundation with an opportunity to review our Memorandum of Understanding and develop a transition plan in consultation with your Chief Administrative Officer. As I finish this presentation, I want to acknowledge our 2021 Board of Directors, Mr. Rob Foster, Ms. Donna Cridlin, Mr. Mickey DeFrucio, Mary Surgenes, our newest member, Mike Balsam, and Gail Wood. I want to end today with the Foundation's sincere thanks for the Authority's partnership, which we have valued since the creation, again in 1969. To CAO Sharma, we send our deepest gratitude for your support and that of your amazing staff. In particular, I and we would like to thank Lise Gagnon, the Foundation's Assistant Treasurer for financial expertise, Adam Christie and Alicia Powell for their assistance with our conservation and education fundraising, Grant Bivel and Gina Shaw for their administrative support, and Renee Bisson for your communications team for your website and social media backing, and also Misty for her human resources guidance. Without them and the assistance of all Authority staff, we couldn't do our work that is required. Through you, Chair, thank you for your time and patience. If you have any questions with regards to the Foundation, I will do my best to answer them, but know that, we appreciate your support and help. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, you're muted again.
Thank you, Grant. Sorry for the delay, Tom. Chair Enzina, thank you very much for your welcome news. On behalf of the board, Chair Johnson, myself, we wish you the continued success and good fortunes. We're so fortunate to have the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Foundation working so hard for not only the Conservation Authority, but for the community. So we thank you for that. Members, any questions of the chair of the foundation? Member K-Wall.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you very much, Chair Encina, for your efforts in turning around the conservation, the NPCF. Okay. My question is really with respect to your funding priorities. I think in your opening remarks you described that the foundation really is here to fund the NPCA. In your mission statement, though, it describes a broad spectrum of things that you raise funds towards. So is your priority to fund the NPCA or to fund broader initiatives that come forward?
Member K-Well, thank you for that. We've gone through our letters patent, and we went through all the in previous things. And I'm not saying it was done wrong or wrongly or whatever, but in light of our letters patent, we are there to, and our mission statement is actually to fund the NPCA. So everything we do is directed to the authority, and as the authority decides on how to expend those funds through different projects, that's how we do it, and specifically to the authority. And I know there should be some clarity that we should put out to other agencies, and we have talked to them, saying, look, if you want something, you need to go to the authority and through that process. Thank you for that.
Super. Thank you for that response and the clarity. I think it's really important as a giver that you understand where the funds are being directed to. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, Member Mackenzie, you're still muted. I've tried to unmute you. I wasn't able to.
Thanks, Member K-Wall. And again, Tom, thank you so much for your hard work and leadership with the foundation. Please pass our thanks along to your members.
I will most sincerely do that. Thank you.
Thanks. So our report, the report that was presented to us today on the annual report 2020 for the Conservation Foundation, moved by Wright, second by Member Cridlin. Any objections? Okay, so that's carried. Chair and Zina, thanks again. Have a great day, and we'll look forward to your next meeting. Agenda item 7 is consent items. There's 3 of them. They are all for receipt, and I will announce them. And then if any, these have been included in your agenda package. If any member has a question or comment, there will be an opportunity for this. I'm going to have these covered under one motion to receive, moved by Member Ingrao, second by Member Rapley. The first one of 3 is report number FA 5821. The 2021 Memorandum of Understanding between Conservation Ontario and Hydro Networks Incorporated. I believe the staff person, Leonie Yates, may be with us to answer questions on that file. The second report is FA 60-2021, Watershed Planning Equivalent Volume 1 and 2 comments for receipt. And Mr. Jeff Vercade is available for questions should they arise. Report number FA 61-2021, Compliance and Enforcement Q3 Stats, is in front of us as well. And Jason Culp, author of this report, may be available for questions. So this is on the floor, and any questions from members about these three consent items? Okay, seeing none, then this is approved. Thank you. We go through these consent item reports rather quickly for a matter of time, but I do wish to express my appreciation and the appreciation of the board for the amount of work that the staff goes to produce these reports. And so thank you. Discussion items. Item 8 on the agenda, report number FA 57-2021, Npca water well decommissioning grant program. This report is for approval, and Josh Diamond, I believe is Josh. Are you in attendance here? Steve Miller is. Steve, will you speak to this briefly?
Yes. Yes, I will. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Briefly put, back in June of this year, the board expressed an interest in learning a little bit more about the Npca's water well decommissioning program. That's the purpose of this report. It outlines the overarching provincial legislation, the Ontario Water Resources Act, and its associated regulation that outlines when a water drinking well must be decommissioned. It also touches on the role of the municipalities in their ability to make bylaws under the Municipal Act that would potentially require a landowner to hook into a water main that fronts the property. And it has the ability to require such a landowner to decommission a drinking water well. The report also speaks to application details, and it talks how the program is promoted presently, and it outlines some of the future engagement. We're looking at putting together a media campaign with our communications department to be released shortly, and their discussions with both the region of Niagara and our lower tier municipalities within Niagara to better promote the program on their corporate websites. In wrapping up, I'd like to thank the co-author of this report, Mr. Josh Diamond, the Conservation Authority's water quality specialist, for helping put this together. I'd be pleased to answer any of your questions.
Any questions from members of Steve? I see a hand, Member Cridland.
Thank you, through you, Chair, to Steve. Again, just thank you for the report and bringing this forward again. So for those watching, generally, we do go through the grant funds available each year, or generally there's money usually left over, and therefore, you know, more promotion on our part will help see this program, you know, fulfill its goals. If you could just comment generally how we do year to year, that would be great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the question. Through you, Mr. Chair. Annually, $20,000 are allocated to this program. And there's generally an uptake of 10 to 14 landowners per year looking to access this grant money. The cost to decommission a well, depending upon the scope, nature, and location of the well, can range anywhere between $700 and $2,500. So while the program has been active, we feel that through additional promotion, there'll be greater uptake on this program.
Through you, Chair. That's great.
Thank you, Member Cridland. Any other questions of Steve? Okay, thank you, Steve. This report is in front of us for approval. Moved by Member Metcalf, second by Member Wright. Any objections? Seeing none, approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We've already, pardon? Okay. Item 8B we've carried previously. Item 8C, report number FA 62-2021, update to the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, Conservation Authorities Act, Section 28, hearing procedures. This is for approval. And speaking to this is the Director of Watershed, Leanne Lee Yates. Leanne, are you with us today?
I am. Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair, thank you. Amendments to the Conservation Authorities Act through Bill 229 allows the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, through Ministered Zoning Order, to authorize a proposed development project within a Conservation Authority regulated area. While the Act outlines that the authority must issue a permit for the development project, an authority has the ability to attach conditions to the permission. However, applicants must be given the opportunity for a hearing before the authority prior to conditions being attached. To assist the conservation authorities, Conservation Authority Ontario has updated their model hearing guidelines that incorporates direction for such hearings. Updates to Npca Section 28 hearing procedures to include this direction will be brought forward to the board through the updates to the Npca administrative bylaw. Through the Chair, I do want to note there is an error in the report recommendation. We are required to take the administrative bylaw to the board by the end of 2021, not 2022. So through the Chair, I request that that correction is made through the clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonie. Is there questions? Member Brady.
Thank you. Please pronounce your first name because I've mispronounced it so many times. I'd like to get it correctly.
Leilani.
Leilani. Leilani. My understanding is that the conditions that are applied, that the hearing is only required if the developer asks for it. If there isn't always a hearing, am I correct?
Sorry, you cut off a bit to me, but my understanding through the Chair is the question is the hearing is only required if the applicant asks for it. Is that correct?
Yes, that was the question. Yes, that was the question.
My understanding is if the authority wishes to attach conditions to the permit, a hearing must be had in order for that to be public and for the applicant to have the ability to answer the question or ask questions related to those conditions.
So, based on your answer, which I anticipate is better than my statement, we can anticipate that there is a permit of that nature that we will then, if there's a condition to be added to it, that we will have to have a hearing.
That's my understanding. Through the Chair, yes, that's my understanding, correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Brady. Are there any other questions? Okay, I would like to have this report, which is here before us for approval, moved by Member Clark, second by Member Brady. Any objections? Seeing none, carried. Thank you, Leilani. And our next item, 9.1, committee reports. The minutes of the Strategic Planning Committee, dated September 17. Member K-Wall, chair of this committee. This report minutes are here before us for receipt. Moved by Member Fior, second by Member Beatty. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, approved. I'll just take a second here before we move on to the next agenda item. Member K-Wall, this has been said before, already this morning, but thank you again for your leadership, acting as chair of the Strategic Planning Committee. Job well done, Ken. Thank you. Agenda item 9.2, minutes of the governance meeting dated September 23rd, 2021. This is for receipt. Moved by member K-Wall, second by member Cridland. And any comments on the minutes? I think member Foster, the chair of this committee, is departed from this meeting, but seeing no comments, approved. Thank you. 9.3 agenda item, minutes of the Public Advisory Committee meeting. This is for receipt, and also that's moved by member, Clark, second by member Ingrail. Any objections or comments? Seeing none, approved. 9.32, minutes of the Watershed Floodplain Subcommittee meeting. This is the subcommittee of the PAC committee. These minutes are for receipt, and moved by member Beatty, seconded by member Brady. Any objections for receipt? Seeing none, approved. Thank you. Agenda item 10, motions. I'm not aware, the chair is not aware of any motions being brought forward, and notices of motion. We have not received any. New business. I would like to call on Adam Christie to bring us updates on the Balls Falls Thanksgiving Festival. Adam, are you with us?
I am. Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure why my video is not working, but oh, there it is. Thanks for having me today, and I just wanted to start by thanking our communities, the attendees, the vendors, the volunteers, our community vendors for supporting this year's 47th annual Balls Falls Thanksgiving Festival. Our virtual marketplace took place in September 1st through October 4th, featuring over 60 craft and artisan vendors. And then our hybrid in-person event took place from Friday, October 8th to October 11th. The hybrid event included a 30% reduction or capacity of the normal festival, which was 2,000 people per day. It's also included 30% of the normal vendors, volunteers, staff, so a much hybrid event. The features of this year was an advanced admission reservation was required to attend. Advanced tickets were sold out for all 4 days of the festival leading up to the event. The in-person event included 50 craft and artisan vendors on site, a farmer's market, diverse and inclusive food vendors, and 5 craft beverage vendors, including craft beer, local wineries, and craft cocktails. This year, the festival featured a drinking and dining and entertainment garden, encouraging families and guests to enjoy the festival atmosphere and live entertainment. Our Heritage Village at Balls Falls was also live with demonstrations, guided tours, children's activities, pony rides, and photo opportunities. I can proudly say that the event was a complete success. We learned a lot from this year. There are things that we put into this year that will probably continue into future years, things we liked. And we look forward to a much bigger and better in 2022. And I'd like to finish just to stay tuned, because in the next couple weeks, we're eager to start our new and improved and enhanced second annual Balls Falls Holiday Trail. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from board members of Adam? If there are none, I have one or two short ones. Adam, with the reduced capacity, did we have full attendance on the days it was open to the public?
Thank you for the question, Chair. We sold out all 4 days prior to the event. So we maxed the capacity at 2,000 people per day. To put it to context, we normally have between 6,500 to 7,000 a day. So it's far reduced. So we did we maxed it out each day, and we saw close to 2,000 with the advanced tickets every day.
Well, thank you very much. And on behalf of the board, I want to express our sincere appreciation to the creativity and the due diligence of you and your team. And Alicia Powell needs to be mentioned for her great contributions, and the other members of your team for pulling off another Falls Thanksgiving Festival under the conditions of COVID. So congratulations, and we sure hope next year you don't have any hands tied behind your back. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
And good luck with the upcoming holiday trail. Chair Inzina mentioned it previously, the partnership between the Conservation Authority and the Conservation Foundation. I hope all members will work hard to broadcast this upcoming event, and I'm sure that more information will be coming to our email inboxes about the holiday trail on that. So I'd like to have a motion by member Metcalf, second by member Woodhouse, to receive Adam's report. Any questions or objections? Seeing none, approved. Our CAO, Chandra Sharma, did need to leave the meeting for another event. Her verbal report was going to be primarily about the Conservation Authority Act Phase 1 regulations. On October 12th, she sent out an email to board members about the new regulations as the province has made public. And last night, as I mentioned earlier, I was able to attend a Conservation Ontario briefing put on by the chair of Conservation Ontario. And I don't have much to add to what our CAO has put in her email to us. The chair of Conservation Ontario also added, though, an important comment. He in his meetings with the Minister Piccini of Conservation, Environment, Conservation, Parks, noted that there was a change in tone. He was very pleased to see this from the minister, and he felt that the hard work of everyone involved through Conservation Authority, Conservation Ontario, and the public. I believe there was 440 direct comments about these regulations and the process that the province went through. So he was pleased generally with what has been announced in the email from Chandra. I would like, if you have any questions, to possibly save them for the November meeting. More information. Chandra's also had a meeting with the other CAOs of the 36 conservation authorities across Ontario. And so at the November meeting, she would be better prepared to answer any questions that you may have. I suspect that there will be more information that comes along. There are still more regulations in the works to come forward. I believe the next set, don't quote me, comes from the Minister for Northern Development, Mines, Minister of Natural Resources and forestry. So we'll be waiting for those regulations in due time. And now I'd like to call for an adjournment of this meeting. And I will ask for a show of hands for a mover and a seconder. There shouldn't be a delay.
Chair Mackenzie, I'd like to make an announcement.
Oh, yes, Member Metcalf.
Thank you, Vice Chair. About a month ago, I had the pleasure of planting some trees on our newly acquired 40 acres at the Binbrook Conservation Authority area. And I was out there with a group of volunteers. And in the span of, I think from about 9 o'clock till almost noon, we planted 350 new trees and shrubs and greenery. And the 40 acres that was kind of pasture and farmland is starting to transform into quite a woodlot. So just to pass that on, that it's being not developed, but developed as a tree sanctuary, and bringing back some of the wildlife and bird habitat. And it was a great purchase, and met some great people. And every time I see Carrie, my hands start to hurt. So just a quick announcement that it was a great purchase on our behalf as the board to approve it, and of course Adam's work to solidify the purchase, and another crown in the jewel for sure, or another jewel in the crown, pardon me. And that's it for me.
Member Metcalf, thanks for putting some gift wrapping on that property. It's much appreciated. I know these opportunities will continue to pop up in the future. We hope we all can have an opportunity to contribute as you have. And I'm glad to hear you've met more people. And the Binbrook Conservation Area is better for it. Any other comments? Member Clark was moving adjournment, and a seconder, I think, was Member Brady. So any objections to that? Because considering it's lunchtime, I won't entertain them. All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody, for being with us this morning. We'll see you in a month or so. Good day.
Good work, Vice Chair.